How you guys doing? It's Eric. I was on a call last week. Once again, just want to say great job. Um, I come from a heavy investor side where my goal is to try to buy as many of these properties, but I do have we do have a brokerage, and my assistant is the listing agent who's been going on a lot of these appointments. So you guys have really taught me at what point in that conversation to take off that investor hat when you just know the direction of that conversation is leaning more towards the retail side, or they're not going to be looking to work with an investor. I wanted to. My assistant is getting a lot of lashback from people who, we are coming out there full service, helping them with the content, just being more than the people who are there to get rid of the property. But she is getting a lot of lashback regarding commissions and, paying these broker fees. And what I was actually recommending is maybe at the initial conversation, maybe we could mention that if we do list it, do you know anybody who's actually offering to list these at like a premium, maybe like a 7% commission, just to give that buffer to maybe allow themselves to back themselves down? And I guess the question that I have is, how can we show more value that, we want to let them know that we're here for full service, but, she's getting beat up so bad on her commissions and these brokerage fees that she's like, hey, I don't want to keep going on appointments and, feel like we're making progress when we're just not getting any traction with these people. They're nickel and diming us all the way down to the closing table. So is there something that we're missing or not addressing properly, or is there somebody who is successfully listing properties at a premium, or building that from the onset and then kind of working backwards to where it's not so tough to tussle back and forth with these people?
So we do have people who are listing these at 8%.
Okay.
With no pushback.
Okay.
I'll tell you a 100-0 story. So the 100-0 principle is about self-accountability. And if you look at stuff as everything being 100% your fault, then it kind of changes the way you look at life and business. The reason I say that, I did this with I saw friends charging 8% listing fees. My first gig in real estate was in 2005 when I got my first license. My first 25 listings ever were at 8% because I didn't know any better. And the broker told me, list them at 8%. And I went and did it. And I led the entire brokerage as a completely green agent. I didn't know any better. So I didn't have this preconception that I had to list at 6%. I just went in and I proudly talked about 8% and why we were worth it. Well, I ended up falling into the habit of 6%, 4 or 5 states later, and that's just what we do here in Roanoke. And I was challenged to charge a transaction fee and a higher commission. And I was like, well, that'll never work in Roanoke. There's no way. And we pretty much had 100% success when we upped our listing to 8% or charged the transaction, like a transaction fee. Even every buyer that we worked with, we would sit down do like an hour-long consultation, take a $400 check, and then we would sign the buyer's agreement and start looking at houses. No pushback. So what that taught me was that I was engaging in the downward price race conversation when I didn't have to. Like, I needed to present more value. So I would take some time and look at how you're handling the conversation and why you're getting that, because like price is never an objection in the presence of value.
Correct.
So how can you show more value to that person? And if they do bring that up, and like a question that I love this question because people just look at you like they just ran over your dog. But when people start that, well, let's talk about whittling down your commission. I'm like, oh, can you be specific and tell me what I've done to decrease my value in your eyes when we're just getting started? And it embarrasses the hell out of people. And they're like, and they get wrapped around the axle and then take control of the conversation again and go, we can come back to that. Let's talk about what matters the most. We'll show you how we're going to get the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. And then a lot of times they're embarrassed to even come back to it. The consumer has gotten conditioned by discount brokerages. They're becoming conditioned to do that, like to chip away at us and try to get us to engage in that downward price race. And not only do you lose, all your peers in your market lose too.
Correct.
So
I agree.
Anyway, all that said, I would, and if you want, we can have a sidebar conversation, but I would sit down with her and say, where is it happening? When is it happening? Like, pay attention. And how are you engaging with it? Like, are they bringing it up, or are you mentioning commissions? Like, if that's the case, maybe you need to change how she presents the commission, like at that part of her presentation. So it's because something's triggering that to happen. Let's find out exactly when that's happening in the appointment, and then let's come up with a way for her to sidestep it or overcome it. But I think you can list it 8% all day long if you just have the right delivery with it.
So she's been selling about 60% of the appointments to off-market people, to other investors or other homeowners. And she's only been getting 4% on that, but she's still getting quite a bit of lashback, and a lot of people are complaining about the $4.95 broker fees. But I will definitely give that question to her and just say, if anybody starts belittling or trying to take that away from you, just outright ask them, put it right in their lap and say, is there something that I did that made you feel that I'm, I didn't provide value somewhere? I mean, that's just a simple, honest way to put it right back in their lap. I love that.
Yeah, and it's really effective.
I was just going to give you a couple quick one-liners. I used to coach, for many years. We used to tell the agents, just want a real quick one-liner. So, are you more concerned with the commission you pay, or the dollars you put in your pocket?
Okay.
Are you really comfortable listening with an agent who is willing to decrease his commission and doesn't know his own value? Whatever price we put on the home, I'm going to fight to get that for you. So are you more concerned with the commission you pay or the dollars you put in your pocket? It kind of distracts them, and it really makes them realize that, it's net. It's not it's not their gross, their expenses. It's what they net out of the transaction that's more important. And that's just a simple line like that to get the conversation started as far as how you provide more value can be very effective.
Something else I would recommend, go in your MLS and pull 2 years worth of closed transactions and then sort by the commission field and look at the days on market for the transactions that closed with lower commissions, and then do the same thing with expired listings and see if you can see if you can recognize a pattern of lower listing commissions resulting in lower prices or longer days on market. And then you can throw it right back at them and say, I understand how you feel, and a lot of consumers think that way, but here's the hard facts in our market. Here's what's happening. And I bet you'll find that at least the days on market are higher because there's less incentive for a buyer's agent to go out there and do that. And we all work for commission, right?
Truth.
Awesome.